Oh, happy Monday. It is Monday. How's everybody doing? Hope everyone doing well. It is a busy day, but listen, it's Monday. Before we get into all the funny stuff this week, the funny shit, we gotta get into a schedule real quick. So, Monday, every Monday is financial day. We gotta learn something about financial stuff. Get smarter. Alright, so Monday is financial. Every day of the week, it's a different category. So this is where we not crash. The worst possible economic outcome. I think he has talked about it before, and in my perspective, I think it's something to do with the Fed stop the hike rate going up. So, but it was reverse market crash. So I mean, things go up too high that cause no one able to buy it. So during the inflation, everything's already going up. When inflation stops, certain thing will go down. I'm thinking food will go down. Price of eggs, milk will go down. Well, actually, no. We have to understand why it's not going down and why it still has to go up. War caused food price to go up because there's a lack of food. So it probably still continue going up if the Ukraine war going. Semiconductor are dependent on Taiwan. So that should go down a little bit because we're still defending Taiwan. House prices, is it going up or going down? I think it was going up during the inflation. Oh shit, that's bad. Because house prices should go down a little bit during inflation. Inflation rate. But it'll probably go up a little bit higher. Because now inflation go just down. Listen, I don't know a whole lot about this. I'm not a financial guy, but I do try to open my mind to this field and learn as much as I can. So let's see what Patrick gotta say.
Market crash, a reverse market crash, a concept I've been talking about on the podcast. So what is a reverse market crash? That's when all of a sudden the market just balloons up. And you're like, wait a minute, what happened? And you're trying to hold it. And you see the rich get richer and the poor get poor. Now you may say, Pat, how is that even possible? I want you to look at this chart from Pew Research. Everybody that's a politician that becomes a governor or Congress or Senate, they all want to claim, we got to help the middle class. We got to help middle income. But look what this data is telling us from Pew Research. According to this data, if you look at the green at the top, that's
share of U.S. aggregate wealth. Upper class going up, middle income going down. Lower income go down by 3%, middle income going down. Upper income go to 19% for upper. %8 down. No. 5% down. 15% down, my bad. What am I saying? 15% down. 19% up, 15% down. All of this contribute to the upper wealth.
Upper income aggregate wealth in the U.S. Yellow is middle America, middle income, and the light green is lower income. To the left, the wealth in America, only 60% of it was with upper income back in 1983, 32 was with middle, and 7 was with lower. Fast forward to 2016, it's even worse today. It went from 60% of the wealth to 79%. Middle income went from 32% of the wealth down to 70. That's a drop of nearly 50%. And lower income went from 7% to 4. That's a drop off of 40%. So you may be asking, where are we going with this? This is the point. Every time we're printing money to assume and say these politicians, we're helping the low and middle income family. You give them money, guess what they don't know how to do? They don't know how to save. They're experts at spending. The government doesn't teach them how to save. They just give them the money and they know they're going to spend it. And then when they spend it, what do they buy? They buy a product, somebody owes them. They owe this, they buy a camera, they buy a drink. It goes to the companies. So you give the money to the poor, knowing the money is really not being given to the poor. It's going to flow to the top, which is who? The rich. That's how the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. And these policies not going to stop. By the way, the other day, Jerome Powell says he's not raising the rates. You know what happened to the S&P 500? Boom, 5% within a week. So what if all of a sudden Powell in the next few months said, we're lowering the rates? We're lowering the rates. You could see S&P and Dow.
Almost exactly what we were talking about, huh?
I'll just go boom, 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 which is called a reverse market crash. Something the wealthy would want, not something you would want for low and middle America. We're going to talk about that today. Okay, so if you get value out of this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Let's get right into it. I'm going to give you a few examples of what a reverse market crash could look like. Case studies, actual reality, what happened. One is Germany, one is Zimbabwe, one is Iran, one is Argentina, one is Turkey, and maybe a couple other ones. But let's start off with Germany. So back in the days, in 1914, 1913 or so, if you wanted to buy a dollar and convert your currency from Germany marks to a dollar, you needed 4 marks. Again, this is 1914. So hey, here's 4 marks, here's $1. You with me so far? 9 years later, in 1923, you know how much it took to just get $1? How many marks? 1 trillion marks. Did you hear what I just said? It took 1 trillion marks to get $1, and it only happened in 9 years. Now why? Let me explain. After losing World War I, the Treaty of Versailles forced Germany $33 billion in reparations. So during this time, Germany lost a significant amount of territory where it was manufacturing goods. They were forced to print money to meet the reparation demands. This simultaneously added money to and removed goods from the economy. Catastrophic. By 1922, price had risen by nearly 700%, causing hyperinflation. The government had to print million mark notes, then billion mark notes. And by the way, you ever hear the saying, a wheelbarrow full of money couldn't even buy a newspaper? This is kind of where it comes from, because this is when it went from 4 marks buying a dollar to a trillion marks buying $1. And by the way, just to kind of show you some data here, if you look at this chart here, this shows you from 1918, where it took roughly 100 marks to buy a US dollar. Look how quickly it goes 5 years later to a trillion marks, right? That chart tells an entire story. You ever wonder why Jamie Dimon, CEO of Chase, has a $900 million art collection? Or Steve Cohen, 1.1...
It's the ad, bro. Yo, believe me, it's probably gold. Gold or art, no need.
40 US cents. In the early 2000s, Zimbabwe government attempted a land redistribution effort which disrupted the farming industry, causing an agricultural production collapse. After monthly inflation peaked by one measure at 79.6 billion%, the government in 2009 abolished their dollar and began using US dollar instead. The currency switch brought monetary stability for a few years until the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe could no longer meet the demand for US dollar. Money stored in the bank accounts could no longer be withdrawn in cash. And in early 2019, the central bank reintroduced the Zimbabwe dollar, changing US dollar denominated savings and domestic government debts into a local currency of rapidly
Imagine going to the ATM and can't get cash.
Declining value. You want to know what this is?
They like limit you for like
stock market. Take a look at this. This is Zimbabwe's stock market. Notice how everything is flat, smooth, everything's good. Maybe a slight pickup there, and all of a sudden, boom! Stock market skyrockets to 517,412. Now that's the stock market, but what caused this? Take a look at the inflation rate. If we look at this chart here, upwards of 800%. And if you go to their interest rates, look what their interest rates went up to. 200%. Can you imagine buying a house on 200% interest rate? That's rates. Look at the inflation rate. If we look at this chart here, upwards of 800%. And if you go to their interest rate, look what their interest rates went up to. 200%. Can you imagine buying a house on 200% interest rate? That's what happened to the Zimbabwe. Now, some people will say that'll never happen to the US. It's just never going to happen because those were not real interest rates. And now you may be saying, Pat, I mean, I know how you're doing this with the inflation rate and the interest rate, but that's not the real interest rate. Well, if you want to look at the real interest, here's what you'd be looking at. Even if you look at this, look what the real interest rate was in 2022. Minus 30%. What do you do with minus 30%? Do they pay you? Like, if 10% I'm paying, are you paying me now when it's minus 30%? Imagine how much of a shit show it was in Zimbabwe. And by the way, if you want to calculate that in US, the real interest rate would be, if inflation is 5% and interest rates are 3, the real interest rate is the difference between the 5 and the 3, making it 2. Here, it's 30% minus 30% in Zimbabwe. So that's Zimbabwe. Now let's take a look at Argentina. Here's Argentina for you.
Have any of you guys noticed your credit card interest rate went up, bro? You just get charged like $4 or $5. Now I got charged like $7 on my Apple Card. What the heck, man?
70 years of welfare policies. A third of the workforce is employed by the state. Most spending goes towards salaries and pensions instead of investments, technology and infrastructure. Fiscal deficit for the last 13 years. Constant printing and borrowing. Biggest IMF borrow. A third of IMF debt. As of 2023, there were price caps on over 1,300 consumer products. And what does this do when you take free market out? Take a look at their stock market, what it did from 2020. Look at that chart right there. It went from roughly 20,000 to what?
That's
nearly
like
640,000. That's what you call a explosive reverse market crash. And what were their rates? Similar situation you're looking at here as Zimbabwe. Not as bad. So I'm going to show you this again. If you look at this chart with Argentina's real interest rates, notice this, they're also in the negatives, right? And if you look at the bottom, the difference between interest rates and inflation, you typically want interest rates to be ahead of inflation. Notice what happens in 2022 when inflation, they bring the interest rates down, hoping to fix the economy. What happens to inflation? Gets ahead of it. And now they're chasing after inflation to not lose it. The reason why we're showing you this, because in America, if Powell all of a sudden gets pressure from the top to say lower interest rates, inflation could go back up again quickly. So managing this and how they could lose control over it, it's going to be a lot of pressure.
You know what I know? This guy Powell have a lot of power. That sounds like a bar.
On Powell to not be tempted to want to please an administration and hold it together. Now we'll see what we're going to do. If he lets loose, you're talking about reverse market crash we'll experience in the U.S. Now let's take a look at Turkey. Okay, they got the #1 military in the Middle East. If you look at Turkey, last October inflation hit a 24-year high with 85.5% on an annualized basis, meaning prices nearly doubled. Erdogan started cutting rates while the U.S. was hiking in 2022 against the advice of several Turkish central bankers that he ended up firing. And what happens to the Turkish stock market? What do you think? Take a look at this. Same thing. It goes from 1,000 roughly to 7,700. That's 700% increase in just a couple of years. And what were their real interest rates? What do you think? Take a look at this. Also in the negatives. And if you look at their inflation, guess what you're looking at on this next chart? Same exact issue. Notice a trend. It's a similar thing happening. America and Jerome Powell's got to keep it together, or else we're going to have similar things happening here. Let's continue Iran. Here's Iran for you. Look at their stock market. Same exact thing. 2018, 2019, 2020, slightly of a growth. And then 2020 to 2021, boom, skyrockets to 2 million. And then eventually to 2.5 million, their stock market. And if you look at Iran's inflation rate, what do you notice? Take a look at this. It's not as high as some of these other guys, but 40%, 60% interest rates, upwards of 22%. And then here, real interest rates in Iran, guess where it's at? It fell down to
loan that kind of money at
negative as well. And they've been trying to control it ever since. Similar issues. And last case study here is Venezuela. Venezuela's high inflation levels are due to...
Man, I remember 2000. I came into America 2007. Didn't know English. I think my first... I started able to speak English fluently like 3-4 years later, so I think 2010 or 11. Yeah, man. I used to live next to like a Hispanic house. I think they from Venezuela, and they used to got it, man. They wear like jewelry. Oh my god. Can't English this morning. Okay. But yeah, no, dude, they used to got it. I think they had like oil money in the country. They used to have oil, right? What happened?
Relying heavily on imports for basic goods, depending on oil as its main export, inefficient government industries, governmental corruption, price controls, government subsidies, and most of all, sanctions. May 18, 2006, President Hugo Chavez from Venezuela declared on Tuesday that Venezuela would consider putting the sale of its oil in euros. In 2017, Trump aggressively tightening sanctions with the aim of ousting Maduro in favor of an interim opposition government led by Juan Guaido. The Trump administration cut off by Maduro's regime's access to the U.S. financial system, barred U.S. companies and citizens from purchasing Venezuelan debt, and blocked PDVSA from exporting to the United States, its primary destination. By the end of his term, Trump had issued 7
You know what's crazy though? You know what I learned? I think Swift Bank hold goals for country. They hold gold bars, like for countries. That's a lot of power.
executive orders
That's a lot
targeting
of
state or
bars
affiliated companies, government agencies, and the central bank. Venezuela's
for an entire
hyperinflation rate
country.
increased from 9,000
Now you're
plus
like
percent to
countries.
10 million percent from 2018 to 2019, according to the IMF. And by the way, if you take a look at this chart from
Wow.
Venezuela's inflation rate from 85 to 2024, look what happens after Trump did that to Venezuela in 2017. It skyrockets all the way up to what? 65,374% inflation. Look what happens to their stock market, the most bipolar stock market you can think about, where it goes from a couple thousand to 62,000, causing a reverse market crash. So take a look at this next chart of OPEC crude oil. What happened in Venezuela? Their export kept going lower and lower and lower because that's what sanctions do. And again, with their interest rates skyrocketing all the way up to 50, 40, 60%.
Yo, it's fucking sad hearing this story. A bunch of greedy people fucks over the entire country rather than everyone doing well. They want, dude, it's fucking sad. And it's a story of capitalism. I don't need to hear the rest. I already know where to go. And we are at the same mentality of a fat cat country. As if like everything is gonna be okay and I'm just gonna keep eating and I'm gonna eating for me. Yeah, we might be okay today or tomorrow, but in long term, shit, our kids might be fucked. So I don't know, man. I'm all in for try to doing more and doing well. Shit, look at me. I'm coming back to YouTube, having a full-time job and a part-time job. And some other random job. And I'm still trying to do this consistently, coming back to it. Having fucking who watching, probably nobody's watching. I'm out here sitting to a camera talking alone. But I'm still trying to do it. Because you know why? In this country, I realize that we can work my ass off, but if I'm not working for me, you hear that sound? That's the sound of an email right there. Just sent to me for some bullshit that I have to check. But I do realize that in this country, if you don't try to fight for yourself and create something for yourself, it's hard to make it because capitalism is good. I all favor for capitalism, but I think wanting everyone to do well is a good thing too, because it's a trickle down effect system. Because if only one person doing well, and I don't know, man, it's like having food while having a table full of food while you eating alone, and making everyone else stand and watch. It's cool for a little bit, but you never know when those people are gonna decide to fucking rally up, and then yeah. So I don't know, man. I think it's good to wanting to have more, but it's good that to wanting to everybody to do well too.
And they also had
But
negative interest
yeah,
rates all the way down to 20%. Now,
there's no need. I don't even know. Watch the rest of this. I think in this case he said that if we do the same thing, is gonna follow the same footstep of the two example that he give from Venezuela and Zimbabwe. But I think I pray that we're smart enough to see example and don't follow it, and not making the interest rate go all crazy. I think like we have plenty of smart people in dealing with money here, so I don't need to voice my opinion in it, especially I'm not even knowing anything in it. I'm just here to learn. But yeah, I hope that we're gonna be okay, and we should all prepare for the worst case, because in every scenario there's two possible outcomes, and everyone must remember the 5 P's: preparation, prepare, piss poor performance. So always plan for the good case and always plan for the bad one. Never know what's gonna happen. Well, with that said, that's Monday. educational financial video. We all learned something. Yeah. Worst possible outcome of a reverse market crash if the inflation dropped too fast. Everything going up price way too fast. But hopefully they stop, pause, and don't start dropping. Just hold for a little bit, and in that case everything will be smoothly ride. But who knows, man, with all this stuff going on, we only can do the best we could. Guys, I'm on the road to try to get back to 50 sub. It has been inconsistent. It has been a journey, but listen, for some reason I'm always come back and try to do this. So trying to be more consistent, and this is something I actually like to do and enjoy reacting and learning this stuff. So yeah, definitely will have to be more consistent with this. Guys, thank you for watching, and see you tonight for a funny video reaction. I'm out.